Hey friends, so it's about to storm, maybe. I don't know if it's actually going to storm, but it's real windy out. It's actually nice. I like it when it does this. I'm honestly a little burned out with summer. I forget that this time of year, I don't love it. I don't love gardening when it's hot and sticky, and I don't know. This time of year just gets rough. The towers are a mess. I got one here. A lot of these were in pretty rough shape because I don't like doing the chores. So I wasn't cleaning the tower. So I've got a bunch of towers that need to be cleaned, a bunch of food that needs to be harvested. But for right now, we're gonna tackle the family garden kit where I have my trellises. The brassicas need to be pruned, and I'm gonna juice those leaves. And then there's a lot of powdery mildew, and I just need to clean things up. So we're gonna do that together, and I'll show you how to get it tidied up, and I'll show you what a hot mess some of the other stuff is, so that if your gardens look a mess, you won't feel so bad about it, because let me tell you, mine are in bad shape. All right, everything's kind of a mess. Even my mushroom towers are a mess. The straw is to fix some mushroom stuff. This tower has to be cleaned out. A lot of it's done. The green beans are burned up. Some of it's still really great, and I'll save, obviously. This one I did clean up, even though it doesn't look it. It just is what it is, because it's got some pretty old stuff on it. That one is the tomatillos and tomatoes. They're doing great. This one's actually really nice. I'm eating strawberries off of this tower. They're doing amazing. The ground cherries are doing amazing. It is just huge. Like, I need to figure out, this probably needs its own trellis next year. The tomatillos are starting to be ready, so I'm gonna harvest those tomorrow and give this a little haircut. This one, green beans are spent. There's some things that can go. It's kind of one of those, some things are young and great, and some things are on their way out. This time of year. And then this tower is done. So tomorrow I'm gonna take all the tomatoes off, even the green ones. I'll just let them ripen in the house. This is the largest kohlrabi I have ever grown in my life. It literally is the size of my head. I hope that doesn't mean it tastes bad. There's some squash in here that are doing well, so that is the only thing that'll stay. So I will have to clean this tower around these, which is totally doable, and save those. The rest has got to go. These are Brussels sprouts, and I've never had any luck getting Brussels sprouts to actually produce. They just take so long, so I'm gonna juice all these greens. So if your towers are ever a mess and you feel like everything's blah, it happens. It's just part of gardening. We're still gardening, and I didn't start seeds. I didn't follow my own rule of starting seeds every 2 weeks. So I don't even have anything to put in them, and that was kind of intentional because I'm going away to camp with the youth group, and I knew I wouldn't be able to take care of them. So it is what it is. I have some starts. There's stuff on there. But I may just take a couple of weeks, deep clean a couple of the towers, let them sit in citric acid, and just take a little time out. I also got this. That is another tower garden, and it's going to have 3 extensions on it and a high density pump. So look for that. Okay, we may not be doing this chore. Video if you want to see that. That is to grow all the cabbages, cauliflower, whatever, brassicas. You wouldn't want to do tomatoes, squash, and heavy water content things on that because it would go through water too fast. But something like the brassicas don't use a lot of water. Oh my gosh, this weather. So we live in the trees. And we are Like there's a ridge over here, so the trees are super tall and on a ridge. And then back here, it goes down the mountain. So kind of like, here's the top of the property, we're here, and then it goes straight down. So the trees are just wild, and there's a lot of them. It's a little spooky when it gets windy like that. So I don't think I'm going to be gardening. Let me show you this. And mushrooms. So the boom room too, I absolutely love it. It needs to be cleaned. It's a hot mess right now. So that is on the list for chores tomorrow too. It's gotten really bad, really dirty inside. But it's doing amazing. I'm growing so many mushrooms. I'm about to do some cool things with mushrooms, so I'll make some content on that. The pepper tower is doing great. It needs water, and just putting out tons of peppers. It's hard to see them with all the leaves, but there are peppers pretty much everywhere. These are all the chili peppers. The basil's still going strong. The aloe's still doing great on here. This tower also just needs some pruning, some leaf removal. Notice some aphids popping up on here. So we need to just go through, give this a haircut and a good cleanse. And I try to remember, if I was gardening in the soil, it would be hours of pulling weeds and doing all the things. So even though I'm a little overwhelmed by all the cleaning and chores, it's still way, way, way better. These are amazing. So these mushrooms here, this is a golden oyster and this is a pink oyster. So 2 days ago, actually yesterday, these were super bright pink. Mushrooms hit a peak, oyster mushrooms. These are at their peak. They're usually a little more golden than this, but they're super crispy and like firm and crispy. And then they'll kind of get a little bit waterlogged and change color and fade. And that's what happened to these. I should have harvested them yesterday. They just took in a little too much water. The pink also changes and the size and shape of mushrooms based on their light exposure. So the light they're exposed to. And the light's off in here because my hand looks purple and it's not purple. So, you know, should have got them yesterday. It's just like they soak up a little bit to get a little waterlogged is all. So I am gonna actually be drying these in the sun. Because we have a huge bag in the refrigerator already, mushrooms are really cool. So they breathe in oxygen like we do and exhale CO2. And they also absorb vitamin D the same way. Well, I don't know if it's the same way, but in a similar fashion that we do. They actually take it in from the sun and it gets stored in the mushroom. So if you put your mushrooms out in the sun, mushrooms are one of the only, I don't know if they're the only, but I know they're definitely one of the only plant sources that has vitamin D. And if you put them out in the sun, they will absorb a ton of that vitamin D, and it can have 8 times the amount of vitamin D content just by putting them in the sun for a couple hours. Now I'm actually going to sun dry them and dehydrate them, and I've shown you on I think the last video or another video recently that you just reconstitute them by adding them to water and they become a regular mushroom again. They take in all that water and it's like they're normal really quickly, and you can use them for whatever you would have used them for if they were fresh. All right, so this storm might not hit us, so I'm actually just gonna get to work here. I have my powdery mildew spray because we have powdery mildew, and I'm gonna be cutting off bad leaves and thinning things. So anything that looks like this, look at all these peppers. There's so many peppers on here. And I'm gonna be taking off a lot of these brassica leaves that are shading things out and sucking up water that doesn't need to be used, and we're gonna juice those. So I'm gonna put my scraps in here and toss them into the permaculture food forest, and I'll just make a pile for juicing. Look at how much this stuff has grown. But some of this is ready. Like those baby butternut, those sugar butternut, those are ready to harvest. This cantaloupe, oh, how cute is that? We've got watermelon on here. Lots of watermelon, actually. We've got okra. I heard the okra can get out of control size-wise. So I'm gonna let these all bloom once, get a bunch of okra, and then I'm gonna pull them and put something else. Maybe even more okra. Watermelon, cucumbers. Really happy with the trellis system. I do think there's some things I'm gonna have to replant. I really wish, look at this zucchini. I really wish the broccoli would finish up. So I could put like trailing green beans or something. Just kind of over how long broccoli and brassicas take sometimes. We've got some bell peppers coming in. These are a shishito pepper. These are a snacking pepper. These are more snacking peppers. I'm just waiting for them to turn orange and red. So when it comes to pruning, a lot of people want to know, like, do you prune this to make it fruit more? And, you know, do you prune this to make it do this, or whatever you want it to do, whatever the action is. And actually, I have found pruning's just more about plant maintenance. You know, in the wild, things will get nibbled on and they may get trampled on. And so plants are designed to be tugged at and abused a little bit. But I don't find that any particular pruning method encourages growth of food, whether it's tomatoes or peppers. What it will do is change the shape of the plant. So you can change how a pepper grows by topping it off. But really what I'm doing is trying to get these plants to use less water and to have better airflow and just make it where everything's a little bit easier to manage. What does encourage plants to fruit more is harvesting. So the whole purpose of a plant is to reproduce. So they're constantly looking for ways to put out fruit, and then they need that fruit to become mature, because that's where we're going to get seeds from. So a cucumber isn't going to provide mature seeds if it's harvested at an edible state, but if you leave it on the tower or in your garden, it'll go from green to like a yellow color and become really hard, and those seeds are mature, and those are the seeds that will be able to be used to grow another cucumber plant. Well, plants, that is their goal. So we can encourage more growth by harvesting the food, because then it's going to keep wanting to put off more and more food with the goal in mind of creating seeds to reproduce. One thing I'm doing, I'm cleaning everything out, but cucumbers don't like super hot weather and they're gonna burn out. I've gotten a ton of cucumbers off of these plants. I'm actually gonna start new seeds, probably rip a lot of these out in the next month and do a fall crop before it gets too cold, because they will grow pretty fast. If I get them in early August, it's warm enough that you can get another crop to grow before it gets too cold. So we'll see. Right now I'm going to clean these up. Our climate is mild enough that they could just come back to life and be fine. But if you're in a really hot region, you're probably going to need to pull everything out and then do a fresh batch like early August for a fall crop. And I'll definitely have some new plants regardless, just because they're going to produce faster and, I don't know, be less maintenance. So I'm pruning this side, and then I'll go to the back and do the back side to give these a hefty pruning. It's good. They need to cool off. They need airflow. I'm going to spray all of this with my powdery mildew spray. Even the stems, it gets on the stems. All right, the lightning's getting bad. I am taking off any food that's ripe because it'll take the pressure off of these plants. And there's also a lot of cucumber. Let me show you. I am gonna spray for powdery mildew before the storm hits. I'm gonna make hammocks for the watermelons tomorrow. So we'll just continue this project. But there's cucumbers like this. These did not get fully pollinated and they've stopped growing, or they're growing really slow. We're in a really hot season. Everything's tired. So in order to get your plants to survive stressful times, get the food off of them, even if it's kind of small, keep them pruned up, keep your water fresh and all of that. And depending on your climate, you can get them past those rough seasons. Like I predict in 2 weeks will be pretty mild again. We've actually had some mild nights and we're starting to get storms finally, which cools things off. But that's a hack. Like if you want to try and save your plants, now if you're in a really hot region, probably not worth it. But if they're like mine and this is a healthy garden, then it's totally worth saving them. I'm gonna cut a couple more of these leaves. To the zucchini, and then we're gonna go in because the lightning's bad. I can tell it's far still, but it's getting close. This also helps the pollinators. If there's so many leaves, they can't get in to pollinate all these flowers, and I would like to see production on these towers a little more than it is. These are young plants still. It's the thing about squash. You know, they come in quick and produce quick, and then a lot of times they die if you do them too early in the season, and you got to do that second crop after the biggest heat wave. These are ready. These butternut squash, I'm going to do that. I want to make a reel of that, so I'm going to film that tomorrow. All right, we're going to go in. It's raining. I'm going to throw this in the permaculture. And my permaculture food forest back there. You'll also know notice the caps are off these. They ran out of water yesterday, and what I've been doing is giving it a day or two with no nutrients and then refilling them. Just to give it a day or two. The lightning's getting really close. Oh, is that? What is that? Okay, the lightning's getting really close. We have all these greens. That was just one tower, 1 banana pepper, 3 cucumber. Let's go in. We'll try again tomorrow. This tower's super cute. A lot of it looks rough. And again, if your stuff looks rough, it looked really bad a couple of days ago. It's actually looking really good. Now it's starting to recover. You know, it's fine. They're plants. They want to live. They'll fight to live. I had to replace a couple. I might have to replace that one. That one looks too bad. And that one. I just actually let them sit too long inside. And then I did not transition them outside by hardening them off. I just stuck them out here one day in the hottest part of the day. That's why they're a little traumatized. But they're doing pretty good. To lose 2 or 3 with the way I treated them, I think it's pretty generous that they're hanging in there. But I'm enjoying having this tower close to the house. Okay, friends, so it's the next day. I just got home from the gym, so I'm gonna look a hot mess. But I got everything cleared out, and I harvested all the cucumbers, even if they were kind of small, and anything that wasn't pollinated properly. And already the bees are going nuts over here. So it helps with the pollination. I noticed a lot of the cucumbers were having this problem. So airing this out will really help with pollination. And I will come spray for powdery mildew later. And there's still, you know, it's a process. There's some leaves in here that can still come out. So I'll probably do one more walkthrough once it cools off. Get anything last minute like this. There's a few cucumbers I left on here just because I don't need that many, but I found a lot of food. There's the snake gourd, or snake cucumber. These baby butternut squash They're called Sweet Baby. They are pretty much ready. I'm gonna give them a couple more days. And let me show you this. Here's our pile of treasure. So quite a few cucumbers, some more greens for juicing. And here's pollinator. They're able to get in here better. That's a jelly melon. I found lots of little things hiding throughout here. So we have our cantaloupe here, and it's pretty secure where it's at. And I'm filling up the tanks. I'll give them nutrients this afternoon. When it cools off a little bit, I'll come back out and do that. But we have these watermelon, and we don't want that to be so much pressure on the vine. So I'm gonna make a watermelon hammock. And you can buy these, but try not to buy things anymore. I'm so sick of buying things, you know what I mean? Amazon Prime this week, and this whole culture of like shop, instant shop, buy this here off all these websites. I mean, obviously, I don't think money in the bank is very efficient at this stage, but I don't need to buy a hammock that's gonna last one season. I can buy twine, I can buy a ton of it, and then at the end of the season, we can compost it back. So we're just gonna make a little hammock here. Man, it got hot fast. All right, so I tied 3 strings together, and then I tied 2 to make a loop. And I really need more than 3, I need 6, but I don't have 6 out here. And I'm just doing a temporary, I can come. This is a huge watermelon. This is an heirloom. It's gonna get really big. So I will make something more secure as it grows because I don't want to constrict the growth. It's got room to grow. We don't want it to constrict. So really I've got it to where it's kind of laying sideways like it would on the ground. And then just one string across the top there. And just gonna give that a few days, and then we'll kind of see how growth is going and change that as we need to. There's a few others. I'm gonna do that when it cools off. All right, we're in the garage. So these are some things I just found that needed to be taken inside. Need to work on my starts today. Trying to get everything healthy. I bought these from somebody else, and they always need time to adjust once I do that. So I broke the cilantro apart. So if it looks rough, that's what's going on. We are healing right now. Like these, they came yellow. They need nutrients. I'm gonna just get these little water real quick because I can't come back out here for a while. And we need to use up a lot of food. So I'm cleaning the boom room too. And I got this new drip mat. It was on back order, so they just sent it to me. Excited about this because the boom room does put off some water. So you want that down. And then we have jalapenos ready. You can make sriracha out of the red ones. I'm just gonna make salsa verde. Look at the chilies already. Oh my gosh, there's so much food, friends. So much food. And this tower has aphids, so we need to give this tower a bath before I go out of town. So I'm just going through and evaluating my chores. What has to be done before I leave for a week. I'm taking kids to youth camp. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and get some more tomatillas. I'm using up things in the house. We've got lots of peppers that need to be used. So I'm making some Mexican food that we'll snack on over the weekend. We can have leftovers. So we're just gonna go ahead and make a big batch of salsa to go with that. And I'll just make burritos and nachos and all the things. You know a tomatillo is ready when they do this. Oh, they split open. That one fell on the ground. I found it already. But that is what they look like when they're ready. Just pop them right out of their little shell. Yeah, we've got quite a few. So let's just make a big batch of salsa. That'll be so good. I got hot peppers. All right, guys, so did a big cleanup harvested a bunch of things. So I was going to show you really quick. I've got all these greens here, and I am juicing with my Kuvings. Revo, I'll link this below. It's a Revo 830, I believe. And this is not the hopper. So there's some of the hopper, and you chop everything and put it in this container, and then it juices it. I went with this one because it's an automatic feed. I find it's less work to do this and stand here and just drop things in than to go over there, chop, make a big mess, then put it in, and then you can walk away when it's doing it, but you have to keep refilling the hopper. So I think it's just preference. I may try the other one at some point, but this is a good sign. When you're doing a bunch of fibrous greens, if you start to get this, where it's just backing up here, it's because you need a new screen. The screens are not made to last forever. We replace them once a year. And I definitely needed to replace mine. I'm more than a year. And I juiced so many fiber screens. So you just order a new one. It is the one replacement part that's required with the juicer. I've never had a juicer, and I've had very, very, very expensive juicers and tried many that didn't eventually have a problem with fibrous greens. That's just part of it. This is cool. This is a citrus juicer. So they came out with this part for juicing citrus instead of having to peel them and stick them through. I'll do both, but I do like this for bulking up lemon juice and things to freeze, because you don't want it, if you're going to use the lemon juice for cooking and things, you don't want it to be through the juicer. It's too strong. So very cool, adding that to the collection. Alright, so we're going to finish this juice. Whole thing. I'm sorry, this camera is going to make me really orange today for some reason. You just never know in this cabin. This is so dry. So all of this is like a whole pineapple, 3 apples from my apple tree, many, many cucumbers, so many greens, and all of this juice. I'm bulk juicing for a trip next week to youth culture camp. And that's all that's, the waste is this small. The chickens like that. It's great what these juicers can do. I'm cleaning out the fridge of anything that we just didn't eat that's getting old, and I cleaned off the towers of any greens that were overgrown. We need another jar. I will jar these up in individual mason jars and freeze them. And yes, I'm going to drink out of the pot. Ooh, perfect. Not sweet because I used a lot of cucumber, but it's not bitter or too earthy because I'm going to be away. I want this to actually like taste good. So when I'm home, I'm doing these big ones. This is what I'm having right now. Can't get this open because my arms are so sore from the gym. But when I'm out of town, this is a youth camp. Yeah, it's just, we're gonna be roughing it, a little bit rustic, right? I'm gonna go smaller. And if you are familiar with juicing, it can have cleansing effects sometimes if you drink too much. So I want to stay hydrated and stay full of greens and nutrients to avoid illness, keep my immunity up, but I don't want to have some sort of detox reaction. So we're gonna keep it small. And this is the reality of bulk juicing. It's kind of messy. So, and not always this messy. Everything's a little messy today, so my systems are a little messy, but I'm dipping my strainer in this water because I'm trying to do this quickly. And there's definitely like pieces where I just got sloppy juicing, so I'm glad I'm straining this. And then when it clogs, we're doing that. And if you notice, my dog just shook his head in a real weird way. That was actually a micro seizure. We didn't know at the time. And he went into full-blown cluster seizures, which is something that's happened over the last couple of years. And it ended up being a very long, very scary couple of days where we almost had to put him down. But we got him out of it, and we were able to take our trip. All right, I cleaned up. Totally fine. I got 5 jars, bulk juice. So again, this was apples from our tree, scrap fruit out of the fridge, and scrap greens off the tower. Just things I needed to clean off, so no waste. And cucumbers, the awkward, weird, unfermented or unpollinated cucumbers. I saved the pretty ones, and we'll eat those in recipes. But all the weird ones went into making this incredible juice. So those I'll freeze and take with me. And then I diced up the beets. I was going to roast them, but we have a church dinner tonight, and I don't think we have enough time to eat a lot of the food we have. So I'm going to focus on the things that we need to eat up. These, and I have a sweet potato, I'm going to just turn into black bean burgers. And then I'll freeze them, and then that has food for the future for us, and we're not wasting anything. All right, I turned all the other greens, the broccoli greens that I trimmed up off of our trellis towers. I turned those into black-eyed peas and greens, and they are incredible. Just tasted them. And next, we're gonna make some Mexican food for the children to use up a lot of peppers and tomatoes. So I'll be taking some of this on my trip, and I'm making some things for the weekend. And this is just how we do, like, zero waste, eating from the garden, making whatever we can to use up all this stuff. And I do it in order of priority. So if we were to eat those beets, that goes into a whole nother meal that then would prevent us from eating these greens. And the greens are gonna go bad more quickly, so we need to eat the greens when they're as fresh as possible. So we're going to eat this fresh and preserve those. So that's kind of how I figure out how to go through all this food. And this is my 3-quart Instapot, and it is amazing because it makes the right amount of food where you don't have a lot of leftovers for us personally. And because I'm not cooking like whole chickens and things in there, I'm doing a lot of different sides that we've blended together. I have found this to be so wonderful. It's great for a small house too, because when you don't have a lot of space. So this is my dry goods. I share on my Instagram stories a lot of this stuff. But I am working on a video on how we have long-term food storage and how we store it. All right, I didn't feel like going to the basement. So this is our kitchen stuff. And then we have a 1-year supply in the basement where we fill up these things. And then we have a long term, and I think the pintos are in the long term. So we're just gonna go with black beans today. But I do all this to save money on food and to make sure that when this food comes in the gardens, from the gardens, that I have a way to turn it into meals. If I didn't have ingredients, then it would go to waste, or I'd have to be rushing off to the store. So it's a hedge against inflation, because a lot of this food I bought before 2020 and was way less expensive then. And it's a protection and it's a barrier to keep us out of the stores and out of buying things we don't need. All right, I'm going to take a little break and go do some knitting, but I wanted to, while we wait on those, but I wanted to show you my hot pepper honey. So what I'm doing with the excess peppers coming out of the garden, the hot ones, the really hot ones, is putting them in honey, and then they ferment. And so we've got our fermenting jar here, and I'll link these below. These are the only way I ferment now, with these jars. And it makes the honey super spicy. And you can eat the peppers. I throw them into recipes. But if I want to make any kind of salad dressing or anything with a little heat, we use pepper honey.